on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
KFC and X-Transports are basically the same company, and they've got their issues. One big thing that they have issues with is that the first draft is usually their final draft, and because of that, they tend to overcomplicate things. What could be one step ends up being 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You. And as a result, the transformations can be bloody annoying, but sometimes they actually make some really good toys. Sometimes there is hidden brilliance within. And one such instance I found in a convention exclusive. In fact, I found it in 2 convention exclusives. I liked this oddity so much that I actually bought it twice, and that should show you just how far they went. To be in the days when third party would actually take risks. Scorpinator is a homage to the original Action Master Scorpulator, one of the partners that came with one of the Action Masters. Surprisingly, not Soundwave's. Soundwave got Wing Thing. Well, there's a million Wing Things on the market at the moment though, so they wouldn't really do that. Instead, they gave us Scorpulator, which is Devastator's Action Master partner, in cassette form for Soundwave. It's a really weird choice to do, but it's a really nice little cassette that they gave us. The reason we have this mold to begin with is because they did one of the Scorpions as one of the unreleased cassettes in one of their third-party sets. And this little cassette guy was released at TF Nation, and I tried buying it, but then Australia Post lost it, so I had to contact the guy that designed the deco for these, who had a few extras, and he sent me a replacement, so fortunately I was eventually able to get one. And I'm really glad I did, because the deco on this is absolutely gorgeous. I'd probably go as far as saying it's the best decoed cassette in my collection. They've really gone nuts on this. Without having to be accurate to any specific G1 source material, they can really do whatever they want, and they still keep all of the accurate details, such as the spindles. You've even got the deco there that makes it look like the tape is inside. The magnet sections, all is really good. But this kind of 90s fonts and color choices, it's just really awesome. These days, it kind of reminds me of Splatoon, although, to be fair, Devastator kind of reminds me of Splatoon. It's also really well aligned for how many panels you have here. This is a very panel-y figure. X-Transports, they go nuts on the panels. And this is no exception, but it's all lined up very, very well, which is very much appreciated, considering we know what happens when it's not done very well. So I really appreciate it. The main gripe is that it just does not hold together very well. You can see all of the scorpion legs are kind of situated in there, but they don't really hold in place, and they do have a tendency to wobble around when you shake it. It's a bit unfortunate, but given the complexity and especially the size of the figure, I can let most of it slide. I mean, we're dealing with a scorpion that turns into a shape. That's a pretty complex transformation. And the fact they pulled it off this well, considering they don't always deliver the best figures in general, yeah, I really commend it. But that's not all, because years later, they gave us another redeco. Volume 2, Sting Thing, based on Wing Thing, which was actually Action Master Soundwave's partner. But no, this doesn't turn into a bat, still turns into a scorpion. It is a bit more opportunistic than Scorpinator was. Scorpinator was genuinely a really cool thing to have. And this one's just like, alright, let's just give it another deco. But I still quite like it. Granted, the deco's not as good either. You've just got this big swath of silver in the middle with a bit of purple peeking through there. You've still got the same details as Scorpinator there, but I think they just kind of copied verbatim, just with slightly different colors. It is okay, it's just not as good as Scorpinator. Surprisingly, it does hold together better than Scorpinator though. The ball joints have been retoleranced, or maybe there was just mold degradation that was fixed on this version of the toy. Hard to say, maybe just be my copy, but who knows. Still, it's good to know that it actually is a bit more solid. I say that as that's falling out the bottom. But in fairness, that happens with Scorpinator as well. These two are both very nice cassettes, and I don't regret buying either of them. Even if one of them is a bit more opportunistic than the other, yeah, a job well done in these. And one thing I really like is that they just basically function along with the original masterpiece Soundwave. No hubris, no, oh, you have to use our specific version of Soundwave or Blaster. Just, they function nice and easily, and there's no real tolerance issues. Just works really easily. I really appreciate this, because they so easily could have been greedy and forced you to buy their version of Blaster and only use that with that, or one of the Shattered Glass or Decepticon versions, whatever they've got. But they give you the option, and I really appreciate that, given some other figures we're going to be discussing later in the marathon. Also, I don't know whose custom this is. I bought it off Michael years ago, and neither of us can remember who it is. One of the few clear decos I actually like, so whoever made this, good job. Anywho, size-wise, they are roughly 5.1 centimeters long, 3.4 centimeters tall, and 9 millimeters wide. And size-wise, here they are next to to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard Modern Micromaster, a standard Modern Minicon, a not-so-standard LEGO minifigure, and crumbs. Now, the transformation is complex, but that's par for the course when it comes to KFC and X-Transbots figures. They use panels and panels and more panels, and that's how they function. I think there's only one toy of theirs I know that doesn't, and I really like that toy, but the rest, I'm good. First thing you want to do is come to the bottom and bring all of the legs up. That'll give you clearance to bring the two scorpion tail parts out. Bring out this little tail stinger right there. Get the legs out of the way for later. Bring these two sections down, like so. Just 1, 2. That will allow you to bring the scorpion tail up together and peg together, like so. Come on, there we go. There we go. The arms separate on their tiny, tiny little struts. These I'm a little bit concerned about. They've been pretty sturdy over the years, but you never know with these. Just be really gentle with them. I don't like these struts. They scare me. Then you bring the scorpion claws forward like that. You rotate them around. Bring down the legs however you like. Just, there's a lot of legs. Come on, come on, come on. When you bring the tail into place, that's it. And these two really are quite lovely. Beyond the concept, they're done incredibly well. There's a lot of subtleties on show that you wouldn't see in a lot of third-party releases. Little bits here and there that showed the designers had a lot of fun working on them. Scorpinator especially, I love the deco on this. It's a little minimalist because there's just a little bit of grey here and most of it is green, which can cause color balance issues, but not in this case, because the purple that shines through from the cassette really works. It's bloody adorable with the tiny head there. The legs are very well detailed for basically coming out of a shape. I also like that it rests on these two bottom parts here, so it doesn't have to rely on the legs to retain its weight. You can create the illusion of standing down. Doesn't look too bad, to be honest. I've seen a lot of complaints about the way the claws work, where they've got the cassette detail on the top here, but honestly, it doesn't really bother me. Now, there is detail on the bottom. Sure, there's screws, but there is dedicated detail, and I've seen a lot of people swap them over for the robot mode, but aside from just being parts forming, I just don't really care about that. I kind of like the cassette detail coming through. It shows that he does transform. I think at some point they were supposed to flip around. There's a joint here that never gets used between transformation, like a remnant of something that was supposed to happen but never did. Like, this does not get used in the transformation, and it doesn't really accomplish much articulation-wise because it's a scorpion. But you know, it's still fine, and it's an option if you really want. The one thing I don't really like is these struts here. These seem very flimsy, and it's very tight in there. In fact, you can even see a stress mark on my copy. That's been there since day one. I mean, I've transformed it a lot, but that was there since I opened up the packaging. So yeah, that's a bit of a design flaw, but it's still alright. And they did actually fix it with Sting Thing later on, so, you know, not that big of a deal. The way the scorpion tail comes together is just brilliant. With that tiny little stinger coming out and the whole thing collapsing together, it's such a cool way of doing things. And one thing I do commend them on is that these ball joints, they don't feel flimsy at all. Yeah, these struts feel flimsy, but these ball joints that should, no, they don't. They work quite well. I was expecting this thing to be a fragile mess when I first got it. I still wanted it, but I kind of thought I knew what I was getting into. But no, it genuinely turns out really well. As for Sting Thing, I kind of thought he would be the better of the two in robot mode, but surprisingly I kind of prefer Scorpinator instead. The color blocking is technically better. You've got more purple on show. I like the way the stinger comes in purple as well, but in general, I don't know, it just doesn't really do it for me. It kind of shows more than with Scorpinator. Scorpinator you could see as well, but with Sting Thing, you can see, given the way the cassettes work, the detailing is actually asymmetrical on these claws. Kind of funny, but it's still cool. Again, I wish they put some paint on the head. I wish they'd actually put paint on both of the heads, but I guess it was too small for them to do so. I do appreciate that they've retoleranced these. They're a lot looser, so there's no stress marks and they don't feel as fragile. Ball joints back here still work really well. Everything else still works really well. I guess it's just orange and purple are a really hard color mix to get right. And they did get this right. I just don't think it's as appealing as Scorpinator. Articulation is of course the same between the two of them. You've got opening claws, ball joints here. They get a nice bit of motion, a nice bit of inward thanks to the transformation. Two hinges forward and back here. A swivel here, although it really doesn't accomplish much. That's not how scorpions move. Ball joints and hinges on each of the legs, and this moves down on two separate hinges. Doesn't really accomplish much except sting himself. I don't think you want the scorpions to commit Sudoku. But all in all, I can't really complain about these two. They're not top tier or anything, but they are really creative, they are deep cuts, and even if one of them is just out of obligation for a convention exclusive, they both justify their existence. If you can get them at a reasonable price and you want to add them to your masterpiece collection, I can't really find anything that would dissuade you. Even the build quality issues
in some of the hinges, it's okay to work around. Beyond their batshit existence in the first place, they are genuinely good. And it's the kind of stuff I wish third party would do more of, but we're kinda past that point. I guess time moves ever forward. In a standard pose with everything in a standard orientation, they are 7 centimeters long, 4.5 centimeters wide, and about 3.5 centimeters tall. And size-wise, here they are next to a standard Legion figure, a standard core class figure, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not-so-standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs.
I'm not going to pretend that Sting Thing is as good as Scorpinator, but as a base mold, it is really bloody good. They could have so easily made this thing overcomplicated with a billion panels, but they really didn't. This is lightning in a bottle. I've heard horror stories of the KFC tapes, but this isn't one of them. This is a really enjoyable figure based on a really obscure concept, and it's a joy to own this. I'm still annoyed that my original one got thrown out, which means now there's one less in the wild, but I'm glad to finally have this. I'm glad to finally be able to enjoy this figure. And Sting Thing as well, but, you know, he is not the best of the two. If you like one or the other, get either. They're both great. Just for me, Scorpinator does it better. I almost said Sting Thing there. I almost fudged that line. I am an idiot. But enough of being an idiot. We've got to be an idiot on other videos. Tomorrow, we take it over to Toy World, the company that could have been great, but unfortunately just kind of faded into obscurity. They had a good thing going with Legends, but with their second outing, things kind of fell flat. But to take a look at that, catch you all tomorrow!